My guest today is Jane Yu. Jane's the founder and CEO of Jane Financial LLC. Jane, welcome and thanks for speaking with me today.
Thank you so much, Ken.
So let's start. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your firm, a little bit of the verbal bio, as I like to call it.
Yeah, sure. So I've been a financial advisor for about 6 years now, and I started my own business, Jane Financial, about a year ago. I'm based in the Bay Area, and then I actually grew up in Chicago near Core Genius in a suburb called Wilmette.
Mm-hmm. Sure, I know it well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the focus of your firm.
Yes. So, I think a lot of financial advisors out there commonly work with retirees. And my focus is a little bit different because I work with more Gen X professional women. So let's say roughly ages 35 to 50. Oftentimes they are high earners, very successful professional women, but they don't have the large portfolios that a lot of local financial planning firms require. So I step in instead, and I'm willing to work with women like that. I don't care about what their savings level is, but if they're willing to delegate to a professional advisor, that's where I can help.
Mm-hmm. So you're providing that leadership and direction to that specific kind of a specific demographic there, where you've tuned your processes and your attention to that. That's interesting. It's interesting. Mm-hmm. How often are you finding over the last couple of years, let's say, you're dealing with some of those big transitions of life, either deaths in the family or aging, dementia, things like that? What's happening? What are you seeing from your perspective? Right.
So even though the women I'm working with are on the younger end, right, about 35 to 50, they are still experiencing transitions. They have aging parents where they're thinking ahead about Alzheimer's or dementia in general running in their family history. What should I do to help out my mom or dad? They are experiencing transitions like the death of a parent, sometimes divorce. I am working with, recently got hired by a young widow as well. So, although the odds are lower when you're younger, unfortunately, woman, did experience the death of her husband. So, despite the younger demographic I work with, life transitions are definitely happening.
Mm-hmm. There's no escaping those. Although, as you say, the incident might be rarer when we're younger. It's there's no immunity per se from it, and you're seeing that across the board. Let me. We've known you. You've known us for several years now. Tell me, what kind of best practices have you implemented around those big changes, the big transitions that people go through in their life?
Okay, so I think the biggest lesson I learned from going through the intensive training at Core Genius was learning what not to say, basically. Things like "I'm sorry" or other conversation killers like that. Even though people say that with good intentions, it's not helpful to the recipient. So that's probably the most important best practice is reviewing my notes, from the intensive training for whatever the specific life transition is, and rehearsing basically ahead of time what kinds of things I want to say to the person, what kinds of questions to ask to show my support for the client.
Kind of that role play, whether it's with yourself or with somebody else that we talked about in the master class.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. One other best practice is remembering that, or being aware that after the initial intense, let's say, 30 days after some emotional event happens, like a death of a parent, for example, a lot of times, people's lives move on, no matter how supportive your other family members or friends are, they need to get back to their routine. So one of the things I really learned from the intensive course was to check in on, maybe holidays where, it could bring maybe some painful memories. On the first, like I have a client whose mom died in May of 2017. And so because of the Core Genius training, I sent her a handwritten card on the first anniversary of her mom's death. And I know that she told me that she was very touched by that. So basically remembering and knowing how to check in as well, providing support over time is the other thing I really took away.
Yeah. It sounds like you are getting affirmations back from your clientele on some of these things that you're doing that maybe that they haven't experienced with other firms. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think so. The client I just described, whose mother died, she told me that it was very touching for her to receive the card, and I know it's really just deepened the gratitude and loyalty she feels towards me. To the point where she told me that she's always talking about the work I do, telling her sister that she should hire me, telling all of her friends. Yeah. So, of course, I do this because I want to be supportive. Right. I'm in a helping profession, but there have definitely been, it's been very fruitful, basically, in ways I did not expect by knowing the right things to say and do for my clients.
When I hear things like that back from the field from someone like yourself, it reinforces the kind of the intrinsic value that I get out of what we're doing.
Exactly.
Looking forward a little bit, if we can, are there some things that you've got on the implementation list to do that they're still out there? As you know, when we do this, at the master class, there's a raft of things that a person might do, and not all of them are relevant. Not all of them are necessary at a given point in time, and some of them take time to seep into a practice. Are there things that are on your plate that you're looking forward to in the future that maybe aren't there yet?
That is a great question. So I do want to further build resources for our clients in advance of them needing those resources. So, for example, with the young widow who recently hired me, I was, frankly, scrambling to research, local mental health resources for her, especially given the circumstances with young children, given her young age and things like that. So building resources or building more resources, basically, for my clients is something that's on my list. Probably what's going to be more common of a situation is helping aging parents, given the demographic I serve. Yep. Amy provided some really good books, links to, I think it was an NIH website on dealing with dementia. But I know I can do more to find local Bay Area, maybe support groups, for example, for those clients that are helping their aging parents.
That's right. Especially at the upper end of the, your general demographic of the 50-year-old, their parents are getting there. And as you know, 1 in 8, 1 in 8 seniors, 1 in 8 over 75 have some form of dementia. So that is the big one. As we've talked about, there was the baby boom and the death boom, but in between there is frankly, by demographics alone, the dementia boom as it flows out. So that's going to be on everybody's list. It's emerging now. It's not really. We talk about it sometimes as a future event. It's the present. It's the present. It's the future for a lot of us. Jane, if you could give one piece of advice to a colleague that in the profession about what you've done along the big transitions of life, what would it be? Whether it's a specific or an implementation approach, what piece of advice might you give somebody?
The biggest piece of advice I'd like to share is, as a financial planner and other professional service providers out there, it's inevitable that you're going to have clients going through these tough times. Death of a parent, death of a spouse, dementia, illness, divorce, even something as seemingly happy as children going to college, whatever it is. And but I used to feel so awkward about how to express sympathy. And, this is embarrassing, but I even sometimes avoided conversations with friends or classmates who went through a time of grief, death of a parent, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But now, after going through the master class, I have the tools that I need. I know what's actually helpful to say to people. I know how to provide support, as time passes as well. So my advice is these tough times are going to happen. And, whether you do the master class or maybe read Amy's book or find other resources, just equip yourself ahead of time so that you're ready when someone needs your help.
Mm-hmm. Great. Jane, thanks very much for your time today. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
Oh, thank you, Ken. I really appreciate you inviting me.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.